So the example I'm going to show you, we're going to create a VBA array function. Instead of counting the number of items that are divisible by n, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a 3 by 3, and that corresponds to the same size as the array, the argument. So we have a 3 by 3 output, and then we're going to use divisible by n, and we're going to do Control Shift Enter. Array functions, you need to do Control Shift Enter to get the output, to apply that formula, that function, to all of the cells in that array. And the output is going to be a 0 if the corresponding number is not divisible by 3 in this case, and it's going to be 1 if it is. So the 4 here is not divisible by 3, so the corresponding element is 0. The 9 here is divisible by 3, so we get a 1. Similarly, the negative 3 and the negative 6 are both divisible by 3. So I've got some data here. This is a little bit different from what I just showed you in the diagram, but negative 9 is divisible by 3, 3 is in 6. So I want to be able to highlight a 3 by 3, and I want to be able to type in divisible by n, and then I would put in my range as the argument and divisible by 3, and I would do Control Shift Enter, and then it would give me a 0 or a 1 depending upon if the corresponding element is or is not divisible by 3. Now this is known as an array function. We're going to have to define or create a separate array that's local to VBA in order to solve this. So if you're doing array functions, almost always you have to create an array that's local to VBA. Also, for array functions, it's almost always necessary to do option base 1 so that we don't have a 0th row and a 0th column. So we're going to set this up similar to the previous example. I've just called this divisible by n. We're still going to have a range as the first argument. We're going to have an n as an integer. So then what I'm going to do is, in order for this to work, it's no longer going to be an integer because the output is not a single value. It's an array. So I'm going to dim this as variant. I could also leave that off because variant is the default type. We're not counting anymore, so I can delete C. We're going to dim I and J. We still need to iterate through. We're going to count the number of rows, count the number of columns. We're going to enter into this double iteration. Now instead of counting the number of items that are divisible by n, we're going to create a new array. So I'm going to create a new array B. At the very beginning, we don't know the size of B, but this is going to be a variant. So this has to be a variant. Instead of counting the number of items, we're just going to replace B by default is going to be just a bunch of zeros, and if the corresponding element of our range is divisible by n, then the corresponding element of our B vector, Bij, is equal to 1. All right, so if range cells Ij is divisible by n, that means the remainder is 0, then we want to have a corresponding element of 1 in our B array. You also notice that I'm using option base 1 up here. The output of the function is not going to be C, it's not going to be the count, it's just going to be B, which is our array of zeros and ones. I did forget to redim B. After we count the number of rows and count the number of columns, we need to redim B. Now we know the size, it's NR rows and NC columns. So we redim that as a variant, and I think we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here. We go over here to the spreadsheet, we highlight divisible by n. The first argument is the range. The second one is the integer that we're determining if those items are divisible by. We don't just press enter, we do Control Shift Enter, and we go back to the locals window, the debugging. We can step through this, we count the number of rows, we redimmed B, so you notice B now is a 3 by 3, and we go through here and we step through, and you see that we have empty items, and when we export that, it'll just be zeros on the spreadsheet. Otherwise, so our 1, 3 position, that corresponds to -9 on the spreadsheet. That is divisible by 3, so that's equal to a 1. And then we keep going. If we open up the second row, we see that there's this 2, 2 position is also divisible by 3. As we go through the last row, we also set that last item to a 1. And then finally we export that to the spreadsheet and we end the function. And you see that the result then is a array. So this is an array function that provides an array as the output. So we have zeros where the corresponding elements are not divisible by 3, and we have a 1 in the other elements of our array. So that's how you can make an array function in VBA, a custom array function. Now also, I didn't mention this, but Excel has a bunch of built-in array functions. We're not going to use them too much in this course, but you can highlight a 3x3 array. There are things like transpose. So I could do the transpose of an array. The transpose of an array just flips the rows and columns. So when I type in transpose, I do Control-Shift-Enter, it'll take the argument of the function, which was A2 to C4, and it just flips the rows. It just kind of flips it about the diagonal elements here. So this becomes this 1-2-1 position becomes the 1-2 position. There are some mmult, so you can multiply two arrays. There's the matrix inverse. There's a bunch of array functions that all require Control-Shift-Enter. So we can create then, I showed you in this screencast how we can create a user-defined array function. Thanks for watching.